Lori Ann Smith, and I'm talking about child abuse and brain trauma tonight. I better turn up my volume. This is Lori Smith talking about child abuse and brain trauma tonight. I'm a child abuse prevention public speaker mainly. I'm a published author, self-published author as well, and just really working to really get information out to people regarding the issues of child abuse and child abuse prevention, and talking a lot about my story as well for other survivors out here and other people who may just not know a whole lot about, what the issues really are for people who have been abused, and even looking at domestic violence and whatnot. So thanks everybody for tuning in. I really appreciate it. I only have about 4 hours left to broadcast on here, and I just do shows when I just feel like doing them. I don't really set them up too much ahead. I just thought I'd do one tonight. I've been looking in at issues regarding mainly the aspect of the mind and child abuse, what effects child abuse has on a child's mind, and then this child will have to, if they live and survive the abuse, like myself, you have to learn how to think properly, right? You have to it's like not just relearn, but you have to learn from scratch, really. Proper way to think and the proper way to then behave and make the right choices. And I was going to title the show, victim to victor, or something like that, or don't be re-victimized, sort of thing, but all having to do with the mind. And a lot of times abuse survivors will almost they'll self-victimize. We make the wrong choices a lot of times based on fear. A lot of it's based on fear and just our own uncertainty, and just many issues. I've done a lot of work in this area on my own, dealing with my own issues. I started my healing journey at the age of 42, and that was 8 years ago. I'm now 50. I hit my Jubilee year. I never thought I'd live to be 30, let alone 50. And a lot of my friends told me I wouldn't live to be 20. So, I've really come a long way. And so, child abuse and brain trauma, it's a very serious issue. I'm still working on a lot of things. There's certain things in my own personal life that I'm working on, to help to sort of finalize my healing journey. I have come a long way in my healing journey. It's taken me a long time, as you can tell, 8 years. 8 years of continual work on it. It hasn't been 8 years of working on it for 2 months, 1 year, skip 2 or 3 years and work on it 2 weeks, another year. This has been continual, steady work to try to overcome the effects that the abuse had on me as a child, from childhood. And a lot of it was mental, psychological abuse. There was a lot of physical abuse, sexual abuse, but the stuff that really damaged my life as an adult, I would say mainly, is just the mental aspect of it. I used to have problems with flashbacks and whatnot. I don't have so much of that anymore, but I've worked through a lot of my issues, and that's probably why. But I'm not a counselor or anything like that, and I'm just telling people what I've done. So I wouldn't necessarily say this won't necessarily work for everybody. I mean, I've done enough study in this to know that we all are in different places in our walk, in our journey. So if you're a survivor and you're listening to this, I would say get some help. I actually reached out to some anonymous support groups in the beginning, and this was about 8 years ago, and really got quite a lot of help from people who, anonymous help that I didn't have to really tell who I was. I didn't have to really give away too much of my information, and I was able to get quite a lot of good help and directed to some good information. And then I started doing my own searching out and found some things that I found very helpful. And I did a whole lot of blog talk radio shows. You can catch them at Blog Talk Radio, www.blogtalkradio.com/Lori, LAURIE-Smith, SMITH. And if you go through, I've done like 1,000 shows there, but I've done probably 400 or 500 shows just on one child abuse survivor to another, talking about the issues and really discussing my own healing journey. I was actually doing the healing journey while I was going through, and I was doing those radio shows at the same time. So, tonight's shows, we've got a half an hour, but I just kind of wanted to run through some stuff because I'm actually still working on some things, mainly dealing with toxic choices, like toxic um, choices on my end, from growing up abused, and then having to, certain things will come up, and you just never know when they're going to come up. Something that'll come up in my life where, I then react to it very negatively and sort of toxic like, and I'm like, where does that come from? And I know where it comes from. It comes from the way that I was programmed as a child, and I'm still doing it, and I'm steady working through this stuff to see where these things are coming from and what I can do, to change that, right? And I've had several counselor type people discuss things with me over the years. That was very helpful to show me what I was doing to self-sabotage, right? And to sort of make a mess of my life. And this was years back, but, so I've come a long way. But there are things we can do to help ourselves. I found one book, this was a long time ago. I was reading John Bradshaw's work, and I mean, most people know who he is. But he put out a book, Homecoming, Reclaiming and Healing Your Inner Child. And when I first found out about the inner child stuff, I actually thought it was kind of, I didn't want to get involved in it because I'm a Christian. And I just thought, oh, inner child, what, I don't know if I really believe if that's really real or what. But I started looking into it and realized that I did have a lot of the same issues that he was talking about in his book. I did a lot of work with a lady out of Australia, actually two women. One of them my really good friend, Kate Mitchell, and another lady, Beverly Searle. Beverly, Searle, Searle. And Beverly Searle, created, really with the help of Kate Mitchell, a program that actually works with people to help you to, sort of get past these things, because the images and whatnot from the abuse that I suffered as a child, they're stored in the limbic system. That's what happens when people are abused or suffer trauma. It doesn't necessarily have to just be abuse. It could be any kind of trauma-related issue, right? Brain trauma, brain injury. It could be, combat, soldiers coming back from wars. This could be people who have been in really bad, serious car wrecks, or, natural disasters. Just anything, a fire, some sort of crime, or something like that. Just anything that can cause trauma to a person, right? And even an illness, I would say. Just anything that's traumatic to the brain that causes problems for people down the road. And my stuff I'm looking at is all dealing with child abuse, right? So this Beverly Searle and Kate Mitchell really helped me out a lot with their program, and it's called it used to be called Forget Talking Therapy. I think it has a different name now. But if you look up Beverly Searle, Searle, out of Australia on the web, you will find her stuff. You just have to keep looking for it. And it was very, very helpful for me dealing with because it works with the limbic system, which doesn't use words, it uses pictures. And so I was able to really do a lot of healing work after I went through that program and had some sessions with both Beverly Searle and Kate Mitchell. Kate Mitchell actually did most of the bulk of the work with me. That was very helpful, as well as John Bradshaw's book, Homecoming, Healing the Shame That Binds You. This is also by John Bradshaw. I really found that very helpful. I needed to learn what this toxic shame stuff was all about, because I didn't think I had any shame, because I didn't take the guilt on from being abused. I didn't think it was my fault that I was abused. I never thought, oh, I was just such a bad kid, that's why I was abused. I never took that on, thankfully. I did a lot of the pointing fingers blame game. Those mean people did this to me. That was my parents and one of my brothers. So, but I didn't realize that a lot of the issues that I had were shame-based. And so, really, this was very interesting for me and very helpful. I also looked at a book called, actually got this book by Robert Burney, B-U-R-N-E-Y, Codependence, The Dance of Wounded Souls, because my mother was codependent. She set us up for codependence. And so, not only was she my abuser, but she kept me around with holding these I don't know if you don't want to say promises, but this idea that that we could restore or have some sort of relationship together, which I really wanted, and then set me up for a fall again, over and over and over again. And codependency, I mean, I had to learn first of all what it was, and then learn how to deal with it, and how to set boundaries, and how to set those proper boundaries, and know where the boundaries are, and know what I can allow and what I won't allow in my life. And that's why I'm not re-victimized, right? I did a lot of work on this stuff, and it took a long, long time to go through most of it. Like I said, lately I've been working on looking at Dr. Caroline Leaf's work, and she's a Christian, but she's also a brain, like a neurologist. She studies the brain, and she's worked with so many, like thousands and thousands of people, not just abuse survivors, but people who've had any type of brain injury or brain trauma to their brain. And her name is Dr. Caroline Leaf, and she's out of South Africa. And she's got a book, actually a whole section of stuff, a whole series of material called Who Switched Off My Brain, and another book called Switch On Your Brain. I'm actually working through this stuff right now as we speak. It's really good, and it is based on Christianity, like the Christian Bible. So it's not really based on Christianity. It's just based on the Bible, biblical, as well as what she knows from science. Right? Very interesting stuff. So that is very helpful for me as well. But it's this whole issue that abuse is so horrifically damaging. The physical abuse, I mean, I survived that, and the child sexual abuse, I survived that, not without damage and not without a lot of problems. And I mean, I can never get any of that back. I can never change that. It is what it is, and that's where I was. At the age of 42, after sitting around my whole adult life, really able to work and function, and able to living really kind of a double life, working full time, always working full time, everything's fine, go to work, everybody, hang out with people, able to enjoy life really outside of myself. And then when I'd get home from work and sit on the couch, I'd be right back into my own thing, which is Lori time, Lori's life. And the waves of, I guess, overcoming, or overwhelming, I should say, despair really would come over me, and I would just be like, man, I'm stuck with myself. I'm stuck with this. I'm stuck with me. I'm stuck with my past. How do I move past this? And I'd always been, I'd never attempted suicide. I'd always thought about it. My parents were both suicidal. My mother had never attempted suicide, as far as I know. She was suicidal ideation. She was always talking about it, and we were always the cause of it. Oh, I should just kill myself, you rotten children, and she wouldn't just call us children, she would call us really bad names, but I'm not going to say that on the air here. But we were kind of the blame, like she would put the blame on us, and also my dad. And then my dad was actually suicidal for real, and he would try to kill himself. And the two of them were always talking about killing themselves and killing us as well. Death was, and murder was just a serious issue in our home, and I was always concerned that somebody was going to kill somebody, like my mom would kill my dad, or my dad would kill my mother, or my mom would kill me, or my dad would kill me, because they were always threatening to, and or they'd killed one of the brothers, and one of my brothers was murdered at the age of 19, and I thought my dad did it. I was really sure that it was my dad who had done that, and to this day, nobody knows really who did it except for a few people that think they might know. It's all speculation, no proof. What can you do? So, I mean, it was a serious issue in my home. Murder, death, always talking about death, always talking about killing, dying. I should kill you. We should all be dead. My dad was psychologically ill. My parents were both brought up on charges, child abuse charges. They were both busted and taken to court. And child abuse, we had social workers around, and my parents were supposed to meet these requirements to keep us in the home, like counseling and whatnot for themselves, counseling for marriage counseling, as well as their own counseling, because both my parents were abused and they were both had psychological problems. And then the children were supposed to have counseling sessions, and the older siblings all remember that they went to 2 counseling sessions, and my parents went to probably a few or whatever, but we got to stay in the home. But we had social workers come around for regular checkups for a couple of years. This is when I was really little, and then they stopped coming, and then the abuse just started again, right? And then it just went on and on and on and on. And it wasn't just physical abuse. It wasn't just beatings. It wasn't just sexual abuse. It was a lot of mental trauma to my psyche, to my brain. And I mean, I grew up knowing that, it's like I'd go to school and I'd stay out of trouble as best as I could, because I knew if I got in trouble I'd have to go home and face my mother, who'd beat the crap out of me. And so I knew I had to behave a certain way in order to not get in trouble. But in the meantime, my brothers were all into like criminal activity, as well as doing drugs in the home. And then I started doing drugs at a young age, and mainly smoking marijuana, smoking pot. But I did a lot of other drugs really later on, heading towards, well, I'd say 15, 16, right in there, moving on up to like 20, 21. And I had been doing drugs really since the age of 12. And my brothers were doing drugs, and they were overdosing, and always or going to prison or going to jail, or so there's a lot of that stuff going on as well, and a lot of family violence. So it wasn't me just being abused. There was 5 siblings living in the home, and we were all being abused in some way or another. And my dad was abusing my mother. So my brain really, when I growing up, that's all I saw in my home was daily barrage of some sort of physical, some sort of sexual, some sort of emotional, psychological abuse being inflicted on me or somebody else in the family. And I just watched this, or I was made to be part of it my whole entire life, until I grew up and got away from them, right, from my family. And even the older siblings that moved on and moved away, even when we're together as try to be siblings together, we still can't do it. We can't function very well together at all, because we never learned how to function properly as adults together. And they didn't do any healing work. I've done a lot of healing work, but they didn't do any, and so I can't be around them because they're so toxic. I just can't deal with it anymore. And I just put my boundaries down, and I'm like, that's it. I will not tolerate any more abuse in my life. I'm not going to allow anybody to abuse me ever again. It's my choice. I have a choice to make, and I can either keep my abusive family around, or I can say no. No. Does it mean that I don't love them? No, it doesn't mean that at all. It just means that I have to protect myself. As a child, I couldn't protect myself from my mother, couldn't protect myself from my dad, couldn't protect myself from my brother. There was nothing I could do. And as an adult, I have a right to protect myself, and I have a right, and I must stand up for myself. And so, I mean, it's a sad situation for so many people out here, who have been abused, and who are still being abused by somebody, whether it's a domestic violence situation, or just being re-victimized over and over again. It's a terrible issue. And the thing is because we grew up this way. It's like a person just thinks, I'll never get out of this. That was my mother's attitude. My mother was abused as a child, and then married my dad, and then was abused by him. And by the time, well, she did try to divorce him in Canada, but they wouldn't allow it because there was no infidelity. So they didn't care about the abuse. She actually went to get a divorce because of the abuse that he was inflicting on her and the children, the older siblings. And they said, no infidelity, you have to stay with them. So she was like, well, what was I going to do, run with like 4 kids and with no money, no job? This was back in like the early 1950s. My mother didn't have any skills really. She was a really good baker, but she didn't have any job skills, and how was she going to raise these kids? So she stayed in this marriage with my dad, thinking like she was chained down. Like she didn't have chains on or shackles on her body. She wasn't shackled down, but she was shackled in her mind. Because when my parents got brought up on child abuse charges, because my dad had beat my brother up, and he went to school beat up, and the teacher noticed and got the police involved, and they got the social workers involved, and my parents had to go to court, and they got busted, and they got arrested and brought into court for child abuse. And my mom was saying it was all my dad, because my dad had beaten my brother up, and then the older siblings all said, no, my mom's abusing us too. So they were both busted. And at that time my mother could have got help, right? She could have got help. And but she was like, well, I didn't want to lose you. So all of my life I had to listen to this thing where I could have let you go, and I didn't want to lose you children, But in the meantime, she's telling us, you children, I never wanted any of you. You ruined my life, So she would just play us all the time. And it was a horrible situation. And it's like, it took I did drugs, which really I think kind of maybe possibly saved my life for many years. But after that, I stopped doing drugs about the age of 21, 22. I wanted to do life, and I was like, I just want to live because my brother had died of a drug overdose, and I knew I was heading in the same direction. And I was like, and then another one of my brothers died of a drug overdose. Actually, one of my brothers he was a cocaine user, but he hung himself. He was always trying to commit suicide because my parents were always trying to commit suicide, and they set it up for us that we should commit suicide. See, this was all very much mental, psychological abuse. Hearing after listening to your parents tell you all the time that you should be dead, you don't even deserve to live. That the whole family should be dead. That my dad was always threatening to kill us at night, and he would really every week he would run around and he'd be like, I'm going to kill us while we're in your sleep, and then I'm going to kill myself. We all need to die, and all this stuff. And I mean, we grew up hearing this, right? This is what we grew up listening to, and we didn't hear any normal conversations really in our home at all. Anything normal that I got was out from the world, right? And so from the neighbors and the kids across the street, whose parents were kind of slightly better than mine, and maybe not 100%, but slightly better. So yeah, it was absolutely horrific, and what this does to a person's brain. I mean, a lot of my choices and a lot of things that I do and a lot of things that I react to I'm reacting for certain reasons, out of fear, out of self-preservation. I'm still doing it. And it's something that eventually, I hope to beat and I hope to master. And I think I'm going to be able to do it because this stuff here is very helpful. Who Switched Off My Brain by Dr. Caroline Leaf. That stuff, I'm working through that right now. It's all dealing with brain trauma and the issue of the mind and how the mind works and how we can change that. Well, this kind of is why I brought this up, because 8 years ago when I started my healing journey at the age of 42, I realized that I needed to start seeing things differently. I needed to start seeing things as a big picture, because I was always just sitting on the couch, a victim, and I should just die, and I really wanted my life to be over. I was just so at the edge. I was so at the end of my rope. I really couldn't even figure out how I was going to breathe the next breath. That's how far I had gotten down. I was just dying inside, which was physically affecting me physically as well. Like, I didn't want to kill myself, but I couldn't think of anything. I was just like, I don't know what to do, and I was sitting there and it just, I mean, I had an experience that, it was just amazing. And I just thought, I've got to live. I've got to live. I got to learn how to live. And so I started immediately looking into information to help myself out, and really starting to get, reach out to people and talk to people and not carry this load by myself, because I had carried this load forever, like for my whole life, right? And so, I talked to a few people, and there was people in my youth who knew what was going on in my home because they witnessed a lot of it. But, I got older, and then of course nobody can identify with that, and of course, and I moved on, I'm older, and I've got my own life, and I'm married, and, it's supposedly everything's going great, but yet I still have this baggage, this dark, heavy load of mental abuse and garbage still clouded around me. I could remember this stuff, and I was just like, wow, how am I going to get over this? And I had to start learning how to think differently. And I started 8 years ago, and I'm still working on it. But I've made a lot of progress, big time. But I would say, this is really good information for people if you're interested in getting it. And there's a set of DVDs that come with it. I keep watching them over and over and over again because it's a lot of information. But this is called Who Switched Off My Brain? Controlling Toxic Thoughts and Emotions by Dr. Caroline Leaf, Leaf, Leaf. And it's a short book. It's not very long, but it's a lot of information. You got to soak it in. And I would say for anybody who's experienced abuse and who's experienced a lot of negative and traumatic, events in your life, and you just want to learn how to get control of things, this is something that I find very interesting. I don't know if it'd help you out, but it certainly is helping me out. And so, like, I just tell everybody on all my shows, if you're having trouble and you don't know how you're going to keep going and how you're going to do it, you get some help. You reach out. You call a crisis line. You do whatever you have to do to make sure, that you get help. You deserve help. We do. All of us deserve to be treated with respect, with care, with kindness, with compassion, with empathy. And don't you let anybody tell you any different. And don't you even tell yourself any different. Don't fool yourself. We all deserve to be treated with compassion and care and dignity and with kindness. And you deserve help, and I know I did, and you did too. And we should have never had to suffer what we had to suffer. And so I just tell all my friends out here who are listening, if you're struggling, you stick it out like I did. Another day. You do not give up. You just keep going and keep looking for help, reaching out. You may not find help right away. It could take some time. You may not find people that care right away. It could take some time, but you just keep reaching out and do not ever give up. And you be the victor in all of this, right? And we'll talk to you real soon. God bless. This is a song. The first song was Fragments of a Broken Dream by The Deliverance. And this is, the next song is Flying Away by Zamza. And God bless you all. We'll talk to you real soon. Bye-bye.
I'm running away, trying to find a better day. Don't know what to say, I just think of yesterday. Get away, I wish I could fly. I get the birds are getting high. I'm ready to die, if only I could touch the sky. I'm dreaming away now, living yesterday without a trace, without a trace. Tomorrow's okay now, I believe brighter days gonna be just like a sweetest embrace. I feel like a bird, like an angel in the sky. It's getting me